In the vast chamber of the Galactic Council, where light fell from the ceiling like 1,000 stars, hundreds of alien delegates gathered. They sat in perfect order, their faces filled with pride, arrogance, and certainty. The Council had come together to make a decision that would shape the galaxy. The humans had been called forward, and now they stood silent in the middle of the Great Hall. Around them, whispers and laughter echoed like waves. The alien races had always considered humanity as nothing more than a fragile species, born on a small blue world at the edge of known space. Their bodies were weak compared to the armored hides of other species. Their technology, though growing, was still thought of as primitive. And their lifespans, short in the eyes of those who lived for centuries. To the mighty races of the Council, humans were little more than children playing with broken toys. One alien, tall with sharp eyes that glowed like fire, leaned forward in his seat and laughed. His voice carried across the chamber. Look at them. These humans stand here with empty hands. They bring no ships, no armies, no allies. And yet they dare to appear before us as equals. Pathetic. Another alien, with a body covered in scales of silver, hissed in agreement. Weak creatures. Their bones snap easily. Their world is young and soft. They have no chance in a true war. They should kneel, not stand. The laughter grew louder. Across the chamber, delegates exchanged words filled with mockery. Some mimicked the human form, pretending to stumble, pretending to fall. Others tapped their claws against the seats, a rhythm of insult. Every corner of the room seemed alive with scorn. The Council was no longer debating, it was celebrating the idea of humanity's weakness. But in the middle of the storm of laughter, the humans stood silent. Not a word, not a movement. Their faces gave nothing away. Eyes fixed forward, their bodies still, their presence calm. They did not argue. They did not defend themselves. They simply stood. That silence spread like a shadow. It crawled into the minds of those who had been mocking. A few aliens stopped laughing, their eyes narrowing. One whispered softly to another. Why are they so calm? Why do they not react? If they were weak, they would beg. If they were strong, they would threaten. But they do neither. The other delegate shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps they are fools. Perhaps they do not understand. Yet the first shook his head. No. That silence is not foolish. It is deliberate. I fear it more than I would fear their anger. Around the chamber, the laughter slowly began to fade, replaced by unease. The sound of voices lowered, and the silence of the humans grew heavier. It was not the silence of surrender. It was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of patience. The silence of something waiting. An elder alien, older than most in the chamber, leaned forward. His voice cracked but carried weight. You mock them now, but I have studied their history. I have seen the records of their past wars. Do you know what I found? They destroy each other with weapons that could burn worlds. They fight until only one side remains, no matter the cost. They are a species that survives its own destruction. And you believe they will fear us? The chamber grew tense. The elders' words were heavy, and some tried to dismiss them with more laughter, but it was forced now, weaker than before. The truth had entered the room, and no amount of mocking could erase it. The humans still said nothing. Their silence was like a blade, cutting through the arrogance of the Council. A few more whispers spread in the shadows of the chamber. Why do they not answer? Why do they not speak? What are they hiding? One human at the center, tall and dressed in black, lifted his head slowly. His eyes scanned the chamber, meeting the gaze of every alien that looked at him. The silence deepened. In that moment, every alien felt as if those eyes carried a storm, hidden behind calm skies. It was not weakness. It was warning. The council leader, tall and robed in light, raised his hand. His voice rang across the chamber. This is the decision. Humanity will bow. Humanity will obey. And if they do not, then humanity will be crushed. A roar of approval erupted from the arrogant delegates. Cheers, claps, even more laughter. The sound was deafening. They believed the fate of humanity was already sealed. And yet, the humans stood still. One delegate whispered again, softer this time. Do you not see it? Their silence is not defeat. Their silence is waiting for us to act. They are letting us choose our own death. The elder nodded. Yes. Declaring war on them will not destroy humanity. It will destroy us. But no one listened. The chamber was filled with pride, with arrogance, with the certainty that humanity was nothing. They had already written the humans' fate in their minds. And so, laughter returned, even as fear quietly spread in the corners of their hearts. Still, the humans did not move. They did not defend themselves. Their silence grew heavier, pressing down on the chamber like a storm cloud ready to break. And though no words were spoken, every being in that room felt the same strange, cold thought: something was coming. The council believed they had mocked humanity into submission. But in truth, they had only mocked themselves. For the deadliest species in the galaxy was standing right before them, silent, waiting, watching. And soon, the galaxy would learn that silence was more terrifying than any roar of war. The chamber still carried the echo of laughter, though its strength had already begun to fade. Pride blinded most of the council, and they refused to notice the silence of the humans. To them, the decision had already been made. Humanity was fragile. Humanity was alone. Humanity would bow. The leader of the council, standing at the very center of the grand hall, spread his arms wide. His voice was filled with certainty, the kind of certainty that had ruled empires for centuries. This matter is no longer a question. Humanity will not be treated as equals. Humanity will not be granted a voice among us. They will kneel, or they will be destroyed. The chamber shook with approval. Hands, claws, and wings struck against the seats in rhythm. Cheers rose like thunder. The delegates believed they had spoken the final word. To them, it was simple: humans were nothing, and nothing could stand against the united power of the council. And yet, in the center of it all, the humans remained unmoving. Their silence was sharper now, as if every word the council spoke only made it heavier. They stood still, their faces calm, their eyes unblinking. They did not bow. They did not shout. They did not plead. One young alien, seated near the back, leaned toward his elder. His voice trembled with confusion. Why do they not react? Why do they not resist or protest? They hear the words of death spoken against them, but they do not fight it. The elder kept his eyes locked on the humans, his voice a whisper only the young one could hear. Because they already expected this. Because they know something the council does not. The young one frowned. What do they know? The elder's gaze grew cold. They know what they are capable of. The words lingered, haunting the young delegate, even as the chamber erupted once more in celebration of the decision. The arrogance of the powerful made them blind, but not everyone was blind. A few in the shadows felt the weight of that silence pressing against their hearts. The council leader lowered his arms and pointed toward the humans. Your species has been given a choice. Submit and survive as servants, or resist and be erased. Speak your answer now, before all races present. Know that if you choose war, you choose extinction. At last, the silence broke, but not with pleas, not with anger, not with fear. The human ambassador stepped forward. His steps were slow, steady, and every sound of his boots striking the floor carried through the vast hall. The council chamber grew quiet, as if every race present leaned forward to hear the words they had been waiting for. The human raised his head, his eyes sweeping across the sea of faces staring back at him. His voice was calm, clear, and colder than the void of space. So you chose war against humanity. The words echoed, bouncing off the walls, filling every shadow. It was not a shout. It was not defiance. It was a statement, delivered with certainty, as though he had already seen the end of the story. The chamber fell still. The applause died in the throats of the delegates. For a single breath, silence reclaimed the room, heavier than before, colder than before. The laughter, the arrogance, the mockery, it all seemed to vanish in that moment. The human ambassador did not wait for an answer. He did not bow. He did not argue. He simply stepped back to stand among his own, his eyes still locked on the council. Somewhere in the chamber, an alien whispered to himself, his voice trembling. That was not the voice of prey. That was the voice of a predator. Another delegate shifted uncomfortably, his claws tapping against the edge of his seat. Do you not feel it? We did not declare war on them. We invited war upon ourselves. But the majority of the council refused to listen. They rose to their feet, shouting their agreement with the leader, declaring the decision final. To them, humanity had been crushed with words. To them, the matter was finished. The humans turned silently, walking out of the chamber, their calm presence trailing behind like a storm waiting to break. They left without another word, but every step they took seemed to echo louder than the council's shouts. Outside, in the corridors of the Grand Hall, alien aides whispered among themselves. Fear spread quietly, a shadow beneath the light of arrogance. Questions filled the air. Why had the humans accepted war so easily? Why had they not begged for mercy? Why had they not resisted, or even attempted to reason? One aide, pale and shaking, muttered, "Because they wanted this. Because they were waiting for us to choose it." Inside the chamber, the council leader sat back upon his throne, believing victory was already assured. But in the silence that followed the humans' departure, the unease remained. The words of the ambassador still lingered, a ghost that none could banish. So you chose war against humanity. And though no one admitted it aloud, many in the chamber began to wonder if those words were not a warning, but a death sentence. Far from the council chamber, in the dark stretch of space where stars burned cold and distant, strange signals began to awaken. They were faint at first, like whispers carried on solar winds, but soon they grew stronger. Across the galaxy, scanners lit up with streams of data that no alien could understand. Fleets patrolling their borders caught glimpses of movement, enormous shadows shifting between planets, yet every attempt to confirm them ended in silence. Reports poured into the council from border worlds. Entire outposts had gone quiet. Stations that monitored human space stopped sending transmissions. At first, the council dismissed it as coincidence. Perhaps human systems were collapsing under fear. Perhaps they were shutting down, preparing to surrender. The laughter returned for a moment, weaker than before, but still present. But then, one by one, ships began to appear. Human ships. Not the small, fragile craft the council expected. These were different. Their shapes were sharp, their designs alien even to those who thought they knew human engineering. Hulls black as night, vanishing into the void. Weapons bristling from their sides, glowing faintly with energy the council had never seen. They did not move like inexperienced fleets. They moved like predators, silent and coordinated, as if they had been waiting for centuries. At first, the council dismissed the sightings as lies. But then the evidence grew too large to ignore. Dozens of fleets reported the same thing, massive human ships emerging from the shadows, flanking worlds, cutting off supply routes. Every movement was calculated, every strike prepared long before the council had even declared war. Inside the council chamber, unease grew. Delegates demanded answers. How had humans built such ships in secret? How had they hidden them from the endless eyes of the galaxy? Every spy, every probe, every listening post had failed to see what was now moving in plain sight. One council member slammed his claw against the table. Impossible. They should not have this many. Their industry is too small. Their resources too weak. This cannot be real. But the data continued to flow. Images of destroyed outposts, blackened wreckage, and entire fleets vanishing without a trace. Whenever alien ships attempted to approach human space, they simply never returned. And still, the humans said nothing. No message, no declaration, no explanation. Just silence, and movement in the dark. Whispers spread through the chamber. Delegates leaned toward each other, voices hushed. This is not the action of a weak race. This is the patience of hunters. They let us believe they were helpless. They let us declare war first. And now. A shiver ran through the council, though most refused to show it. Pride still blinded them, but pride could not erase the fear that now grew behind their words. For the first time, some began to wonder if the humans had wanted this war all along. The elder who had spoken before rose again, his voice shaking but steady. I told you. They are not weak. They survived themselves. Do you not see? Every war they have fought on their own world has sharpened them. They learned to hide their power, to wait, to strike when the time is right. And you have given them the reason they needed. His words were met with silence. No one laughed this time. No one mocked. The delegates stared at the reports in front of them, at the endless streams of human fleets appearing like ghosts out of the dark. Then came the first direct confrontation. A council fleet of 50 warships entered human space, expecting to find scattered colonies and fragile defenses. What they found instead was silence. The stars stretched empty, no sign of life. They advanced, confident, until the black shapes emerged from the void. Human warships, larger than expected, faster than believed possible, surrounded them. The council fleet opened fire, energy blasts cutting through the darkness. For a moment, space lit up with battle. But then, just as quickly, it ended. Every council warship was destroyed, not a single human vessel lost. The entire confrontation lasted less than 7 minutes. When the news reached the chamber, the silence was crushing. The delegates stared at one another, each afraid to speak. Some shifted in their seats, some clenched their hands, but no one dared to laugh. Not anymore. The human ambassador returned to the chamber days later. He stood in the same place, calm as before, eyes as cold as the void. Again, he said nothing at first. The council leader demanded answers, demanded that humanity explain. The ambassador simply stared back in silence, until finally, he spoke. You thought us weak. You thought us fragile. But you never asked why we were silent. His words carried through the chamber, heavy as stone. We were silent because we knew this day would come. We were silent because we prepared for it long before you ever declared war. You laugh at our weakness. But weakness taught us how to survive. Weakness taught us how to hide, how to wait, how to strike only once. The delegates shivered. Every word sank into their hearts like ice. You chose this war. And now you will see what it means to fight the deadliest species in the galaxy. The ambassador turned, leaving the chamber in silence once more. No one spoke after him. No one dared. For they all understood now, the silence of humanity had never been weakness. It had been a warning. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from the crowded council chamber, an alien historian sat surrounded by ancient records. He was older than most, his skin wrinkled with time, his eyes heavy with knowledge. For centuries, his people had gathered fragments of history from every world, storing them in endless libraries. Most of the council laughed at him, calling him a relic of the past, a creature lost in old words and dead civilizations. But now, when whispers of human fleets spread across the stars, the council finally turned to him. He opened the dusty archives, scrolling through records humans themselves had forgotten, records buried deep in time. Images of burning cities, skies filled with smoke, oceans black with fire. Wars that had ended entire nations, weapons so devastating they could shatter the ground itself. He watched the videos of humans destroying each other with a calm so cold it sent a shiver down his ancient spine. He gathered the council in a private chamber and spoke slowly, each word measured. You believe humans are weak because they are fragile. You believe their short lives make them small. But you do not understand the truth. Their fragility has forced them to become strong. Their short lives have made them desperate to leave a mark before death takes them. And so they fight, harder than any of you can imagine. The chamber stirred with unease, but he continued. His voice grew stronger, louder. On their own world, long before they traveled to the stars, humans built weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single strike. And they used them against each other. They poisoned their own skies. They burned their own lands. They turned their own world into ashes and still, they survived. Do you see? They are not like us. Where another race would have vanished, they endured. He pressed a claw to the projection, the glowing image of a mushroom cloud towering over a ruined city. This was not a war between empires. This was not a fight for the galaxy. This was humanity, killing itself. And still, they climbed back from ruin. They do not fear extinction, because they have tasted it already and lived. Some council members shifted nervously in their seats. One finally raised his voice, filled with denial. If this is true, if they are so dangerous, then why did we not see it sooner? Why did we not witness their strength before? The historian's eyes narrowed. Because they learned to hide it. They learned that showing their strength invites enemies. So they buried it, layer after layer, until no one saw the truth. You saw only what they allowed you to see. And now, you mock them, you declare war upon them. You have given them reason to reveal what they kept hidden. Silence followed. Not the silence of humans this time, but the silence of fear spreading among the powerful. One delegate whispered, his voice shaking. If they survived destroying themselves, then what will they do to us? The historian turned, his gaze sweeping the chamber. You have unleashed them. They will not fight you as equals. They will fight you as survivors. And survivors do not stop until the threat is gone. But arrogance is stubborn, and many of the council still refused to listen. They told themselves the historian was exaggerating, that his warnings were nothing more than stories from a dead past. They clung to their pride, unwilling to admit the fear building in their hearts. And then, the first reports came. Whole colonies burned to the ground. Fleets cut off from supply lines, starved and left helpless. Human ships, black as the void, striking without warning, then vanishing back into the dark. The same pattern, again and again, wait, strike, disappear. The historian watched the reports arrive one after another, his chest heavy with sorrow. He had tried to warn them. He had given them the truth. But the council, drunk with arrogance, had laughed at it. Now the galaxy itself would pay the price. He whispered to himself as the chamber fell into chaos, his voice too low for others to hear. You declared war on the deadliest species, and you did not even know it. Now, it is too late to turn back. Outside, in the silence of deep space, the human fleets kept moving, patient and unstoppable. The historian knew the truth no one else dared to say aloud. This war would not end with humanity's destruction. It would end with the galaxy learning fear it had never known before. The first fleet sent into human space was one of the strongest the Council had ever assembled. 50 warships, each armed with weapons that had crushed rebellions and erased colonies. Their hulls glowed with the pride of their races, banners of the Council flashing across the void. They entered human territory expecting little resistance. To them, it would be a simple victory, a lesson to force humanity to kneel. For the first few days, the fleet reported nothing unusual. They passed abandoned satellites, burnt-out stations, and colonies that seemed eerily empty. No resistance. No cries for help. Just silence. The commanders laughed, believing humans had already fled in fear. Some even joked about how quickly they would bring the humans back in chains. But then, the silence deepened. Long-range scanners began to flicker with strange readings. Blurs of movement in the darkness. Signals that appeared and vanished too quickly to track. The commanders dismissed them as malfunctions at first, until the shadows grew closer. Out of the void, shapes emerged. Black ships, their hulls absorbing all light, moving with perfect silence. At first, the fleet thought they were small, scattered vessels. But the shadows kept multiplying, stretching out in all directions. One by one, the human ships revealed themselves, surrounding the Council fleet like predators closing a circle around prey. The Council commander barked orders. Weapons powered up, shields raised. They fired first, beams of light cutting through the dark. Explosions flared as a few human ships were struck, but then something terrifying happened. The human fleet did not scatter. They advanced. Missiles launched in perfect formation, hundreds at once. The Council's defenses scrambled, intercepting some, but too many broke through. Entire warships erupted into flames, torn apart in seconds. Before the Council could regroup, human railguns fired, long streaks of light tearing through hulls with impossible precision. The battle should have lasted hours. It ended in minutes. The Council fleet fired desperately, but their weapons hit nothing but shadows. Human ships moved too fast, vanishing from sensors only to reappear on the flanks, striking with deadly accuracy. Within 7 minutes, more than half the Council fleet was destroyed. The rest attempted to retreat, engines burning as they tried to flee. But the humans had already predicted it. Black ships cut off every escape route, closing in until the survivors were forced into surrender. No mercy was given. When the last Council warship exploded, the void returned to silence. The human fleet drifted for a moment, cold and patient, before vanishing back into the dark. The news struck the Council chamber like a thunderbolt. Reports came in of total loss. 50 ships, gone. Not a single human vessel destroyed. Not a single survivor to tell the story. The chamber, once filled with laughter and arrogance, fell into stunned silence. No one spoke. No one dared to. Finally, one delegate broke the quiet, his voice shaking. This was supposed to be impossible. They should not have been able to do this. Another whispered, barely able to breathe. They planned it. They waited. All this time, they were ready. We were blind. The council leader slammed his fist against the table, his voice desperate. It was only one fleet. We will send more. We will crush them with numbers. But the historian, watching from his corner, shook his head slowly. No. You will only feed them. Every fleet you send will be another lesson for them to perfect. Do you not see? They are not just fighting us. They are studying us. And when they are finished, he looked around the chamber, his eyes heavy with truth. None of us will remain. The delegates argued, voices rising in fear and denial, but none could erase the image that haunted their minds, the sight of 50 proud warships destroyed in less than 10 minutes. The silence that followed was colder than before, heavier, almost unbearable. Somewhere, in the shadows of the chamber, a whisper spread from one delegate to another. We thought we were hunting prey. But the prey has teeth. And we are the ones being hunted. Outside, in the endless dark, the human fleets moved again. Always silent, always waiting. They had made their first strike, and the galaxy would never forget it. The council chamber was heavy with fear when the humans returned. The grand hall, once filled with mocking laughter and proud voices, now felt like a tomb. Delegates sat stiff in their seats, their faces pale, their claws and hands restless against the polished tables. The reports of the lost fleet still echoed in their minds. 50 ships gone, erased in minutes, and not a single human vessel lost. Pride had been shattered, replaced with unease that no one wanted to name. The doors to the chamber opened with a low rumble, and the human delegation entered. They walked with slow, steady steps, not hurried, not arrogant, just calm. Their silence pressed against every wall of the chamber. Many of the delegates avoided their gaze, afraid to meet those human eyes that now carried the weight of unanswered questions. The human ambassador stepped into the center of the hall. He did not rush. He stood there for a long moment, scanning the chamber, his eyes meeting those of the council members one by one. No expression crossed his face, yet every alien felt the same chill crawl across their skin. The council leader, trying to hold his authority together, rose from his throne. His voice was louder than it needed to be, sharp with fear hidden beneath anger. You dare return here after destroying a fleet of the council? You dare stand in this hall as if you are untouchable? Answer for your crimes, human. The ambassador did not flinch. He did not bow. He let the words echo until they faded into silence, then spoke at last. His voice was calm, measured, but it carried farther than any shout. You call it a crime. But we call it a response. You chose this war. You laughed at us. You mocked us. And now you demand answers. Very well. Here is your answer. The chamber fell silent, every delegate leaning forward without realizing it. You thought we were weak because we were silent. You thought our silence meant fear. But silence is not fear. Silence is preparation. We do not roar before we strike. We wait. We plan. And when we move, we do not stop until the threat is gone. The words hung in the air like a blade above every throat. The ambassador's eyes swept the chamber again, his gaze steady and cold. You believe yourselves rulers of this galaxy. But rulers do not mock their enemies into war. Rulers do not underestimate those who stand before them. You asked for submission. You demanded we kneel. Instead, you will learn what it means to awaken a predator. Murmurs spread, nervous and uncertain. Some delegates clenched their fists, others whispered to each other in panic. The historian, seated in the shadows, lowered his eyes, knowing that everything he had warned was now unfolding in front of them. The council leader slammed his fist on the arm of his throne, his voice shaking with anger. You dare threaten us in our own hall? We are the council. We control this galaxy. Your kind will be crushed under our armies. The human ambassador tilted his head slightly, as though studying a small, fragile creature that did not yet realize its fate. Then he spoke, and his words froze the hall. You sent your armies. We crushed them in minutes. Send more, and you will feed us more victories. The truth is simple, humanity does not fear war. War is the air we breathe, the fire that forged us. You cannot break us, because we were born in fire. You cannot outlast us, because we have survived our own extinction. And you cannot defeat us, because you have already made the one mistake we needed, choosing this war. Silence gripped the chamber, heavier than before. Every delegate felt the weight of those words pressing into their bones. For the first time, many of them understood, this was not a bluff. This was not arrogance. It was a promise. The ambassador stepped back, his final words cutting through the air like steel. You declared war on the deadliest species in this galaxy. Now you will see why that silence terrified you. Without another word, the humans turned and left the chamber. Their steps echoed against the stone floor, each one a reminder that the galaxy had already crossed a line it could never return from. When the doors closed, the council sat frozen, no one daring to speak. Some whispered prayers, others sat with faces pale as ash. The silence left behind was worse than the laughter that once filled the hall. For in that silence, they all knew the truth, humanity had only just begun. Whispers of fear spread faster than light across the galaxy. The loss of the Great Fleet could not be hidden, no matter how hard the Council tried to bury the reports. Rumors ran through marketplaces, through soldier barracks, through entire colonies. 50 warships, gone. Destroyed in minutes by a species the Council had mocked only weeks before. The galaxy that once laughed at humanity now spoke their name with dread. Inside the Council chamber, the arrogance that once filled the air had vanished. Delegates who once raised their voices to mock humans now sat in uneasy silence. Their faces betrayed what their words could not admit, they were afraid. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power they had enjoyed was trembling. Some delegates began to speak softly, their voices filled with desperation. We must reconsider. Perhaps there is still a way to negotiate with them. Another snapped back, though his voice cracked. Negotiate. With a predator. They will not bargain. They will not forgive. We declared war, and now they will see it through. Across the chamber, others argued, panic lacing their words. Some demanded that more fleets be sent, larger and stronger. Others demanded peace, fearing total destruction if the war continued. The once united council fractured into chaos, their voices colliding like crashing waves. The historian sat in the shadows, watching the panic unfold. He spoke quietly, his voice carrying just enough for those nearby to hear. It has already begun. You see now what silence meant. They are not rushing. They are not desperate. They are patient. And patience in war is death for those who oppose them. Delegates turned on him, desperate for hope. Then what do we do? What can stop them? The historian lowered his gaze. Nothing. Humanity will decide when this war ends, not us. The chamber fell into a deeper silence. The truth was unbearable, yet undeniable. The war was no longer in the hands of the Council. It was in the hands of humanity. And outside the chamber, in the endless void, human fleets moved again. Colony after colony reported strange disappearances. Supply lines cut, ships vanishing without distress calls, planets falling dark without warning. No battles, no drawn-out sieges. Just silence, and then nothing remained. The fear spread into the hearts of the common people. On alien worlds, citizens whispered in markets, if the humans come, what chance do we have? Soldiers who once swore loyalty to the Council now looked to the stars with unease, knowing that an enemy they did not understand was watching them. Soon, delegations from smaller races began to break away from the Council. One by one, they approached the humans in secret, sending pleas for peace. They offered supplies, technology, even entire colonies, begging to be spared from destruction. But the humans gave no answer. Their silence was more terrifying than any reply. The council leader raged at this betrayal, slamming his fists, demanding unity. But even his voice, once so powerful, now sounded hollow. The fractures in the council deepened, alliances crumbling under the weight of fear. Some spoke of surrender, others of extermination, But all of them knew the truth: the humans were no longer reacting. They were controlling. In the middle of this chaos, a single thought echoed through every mind, whispered from delegate to delegate, carried on the breath of fear. Humans decide when this war ends, not us. And still, the humans said nothing. Their silence was the loudest sound in the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath as the final storm gathered. Every system, every colony, every fleet had heard the same whisper: humanity was coming. They did not announce their movements. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They simply advanced in silence, and wherever they went, resistance crumbled like sand in the tide. The Council, once proud rulers of countless stars, now stood divided and desperate. Some races had already fled, abandoning their seats in the chamber. Others hid behind false promises, claiming loyalty while secretly sending messages of surrender to the humans. What had once been a mighty council now looked like frightened children arguing in the dark. The humans never returned to plead or bargain. They let their actions speak. Planets that had mocked them were silent now. Fleets that had sworn to crush them were gone, erased without a trace. Every strike was precise, every battle short. It was not war as the Council knew it, it was a demonstration. When the humans finally appeared at the edge of the Council's homeworld, there was no speech, no declaration. Their fleet emerged from the void like a wall of steel and fire. Thousands of ships, each one glowing with a quiet, deadly confidence. No chaos, no hesitation, only order, only silence. The Council leader tried one last time to summon defiance. His voice trembled as he shouted across the chamber, broadcasted to his people. "We will not bow. We are the Council. We cannot." But even he faltered when the first human transmission came through. A single voice, calm, steady, without anger or mercy. "You wanted war. You declared it. Now you will see it end. Not with your victory. Not with your terms. But with our silence." Then the skies lit up. The human fleet moved as one, cutting through defenses with ruthless precision. Council ships scattered, firing blindly, their formations breaking within moments. Entire defense grids fell in minutes, their proud fortresses reduced to glowing ruins. The Council's fleets had no chance. On the ground, citizens watched the heavens burn. But instead of cruelty, there was clarity in the way humanity fought. They did not slaughter without purpose. They destroyed the fleets, the weapons, the systems of control, but they left the helpless untouched. It was not conquest. It was judgment. Inside the chamber, delegates broke down. Some wept, some begged, some fled. The historian watched quietly, his heart heavy, but his eyes clear. He had warned them. He had told them silence was not weakness. And now they all understood. When the final Council fleet fell, when the last defense collapsed, the humans did not cheer. They did not taunt. They simply stopped. Their fleet hung in orbit, a silent reminder of power. The voice returned once more, cold and final. "This war is over. Not because you surrendered, but because we chose to end it. Remember this: humanity does not seek war. But if war is brought to us, we will not bow, we will not break, and we will not stop until silence is all that remains." The transmission ended. The human fleet turned and vanished back into the stars, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. The Council lay in ruins, their arrogance shattered. Every race knew now what the whispers had always meant. Humanity was not the weakest. Humanity was the predator they had awoken. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy finally understood the truth. War against humanity was not just a mistake, it was the last mistake they would ever make.